Hi there, this is our lesson 133. Here I will show you how to conjugate all the Spanish verbs into what I call future number two. In the previous class, we saw how to conjugate the simple future. The simple future in Spanish is quite more difficult than in English, right? Because there is a particular conjugation for every subject pronoun, right? And we have to learn the rule for conjugating all the regular verbs into each of the three verbal groups. Plus, we need to know how to conjugate the irregular verbs, okay? But this future number two is a much easier future tense conjugation because it is similar to the English future conjugation, okay? Where we have an auxiliary verb that is conjugated and then we leave the verb in infinitive, right? For example, in English we say, I will eat, or we can also say, I am going to eat. We have those two ways of speaking in the future. This future tense that I will show you now corresponds to the second future tense. And in Spanish, it is much more used actually than it is in English. So you can feel really comfortable speaking using this future conjugation in Spanish, and I assure you it will be much easier than learning how to use the simple future that I taught you in the previous lesson. Of course, ideally, you better learn both, but this one will be much easier for you to manage, okay? So before we start learning how to conjugate, let me show you quickly all the conjugations we have in Spanish, all the verbal tenses, right? And we will see all of these in the future lessons, okay? I think I'm missing one because in total I think we have 22 verbal conjugations, and I will show you each one of these, right? For conjugating all the regular verbs of each of the three big groups of verbs, okay? We will begin with the group of verbs that end in ar or in ar, right? And for this, we will take as an example, we will use the verb hablar, which means to speak. This is a perfect example of a regular verb of the first group. You can see in blue we have the root of the verb, right? The root of the verb is what remains once we stripped out the ending of the verb. The ending are those two letters that we have in red, right? Those two letters that designate which group the verb belongs to, right? Here, the last two letters of the verb, ar or ar, show us that this verb belongs to the first group, okay? Hablar. Example, yo voy a hablar. I am going to speak. The auxiliary verb we will use is the verb ir, or verb to go, right? We will start with the first person, the person I. Yo voy a hablar. I am going to speak. Tú vas a hablar. You are going to speak. Él va a hablar. He is going to speak. Ella va a hablar. She is going to speak. Usted va a hablar. You are going to speak. The usted means you, but it is the formal you. Spanish is a very formal language, and we use usted, the formal you, when we are addressing somebody we need to treat with respect. For example, the manager or the CEO or VP of a company or of the place where we work, somebody that requires us to keep some distance, right? So we address him formally, usted. Also, when we address elderly people or much older people than us, right? Unless it is our grandparents or our parents, then we address them as usted. Or also when we address adults that we are not related to, right? For example, if we are talking to somebody in the street or somebody in the market, or we are shopping and we are talking to the salesperson, okay? Or the salesperson is talking to a client or a customer, the correct form in Spanish is to address that person with usted, not with tú, okay? So usted means you formal, but it is conjugated as the third person of the singular, as él or ella. Let's continue. Nosotros vamos a hablar. We are going to speak. Vosotros vais a hablar. You are going to speak. This is the plural you. Ustedes van a hablar. You are going to speak. This is also the plural you. And ellos van a hablar. They are going to speak. Vosotros and ustedes are synonyms, but vosotros is the word that is used in Spain, and ustedes is a subject pronoun that is used in Latin America, right? So, and although they are the same, they mean the same thing, see how the conjugation is different. Vosotros vais a hablar and ustedes van a hablar. Ustedes always conjugates the same as ellos. Let's continue now with the group of verbs that end in er, right? This is the second group of verbs. Let's use the verb comer as an example. Comer means to eat. Example, yo voy a comer. I am going to eat. We are still using the auxiliary verb ir, or to go. Yo voy a comer. Tú vas a comer. Él va a comer, or ella va a comer, or usted va a comer. You are going to eat. Nosotros vamos a comer. Vosotros vais a comer. Ustedes van a comer. Ellos van a comer. Let's end with the third and last group of verbs, the verbs that end in ir, right, or ir. This is the smallest of the three groups of verbs, and this is also the group of verbs that has more irregular verbs. As an example, let's take the verb vivir and let's conjugate this verb. Vivir means to live. Example, yo voy a vivir. I am going to live. And we are still using the auxiliary verb ir, to go, okay? See how ir has the root of the verb, actually not the root, the ending is ir. The whole verb itself is just ir, those two letters, right? That shows us that this verb belongs to this third group of verbs. However, since this verb has no root because it just has two letters, right? The conjugation of the verb is completely irregular and it has nothing of the two words that it shows in the infinitive, right? IR. You can see that the conjugation has no I and has no R. Look, yo voy. Voy has no I and has no R. This is a very irregular verb. Let's begin conjugating the verb vivir. Yo voy a vivir. Tú vas a vivir. Él va a vivir. Nosotros vamos a vivir. Vosotros vais a vivir. Ustedes van a vivir. Ellos van a vivir. So we have seen how to conjugate this, what I call future number 2, for we are